Hey everybody, I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the first unit of the course, which is called the Philosophical Foundations unit. Now it's a little bit of a different unit in that I made it up myself. I've added it to the course because I thought that it would be a great introduction to the course. Now, before you think, wow, what's that crazy guy doing adding stuff to the course, you have to remember that I took some stuff out elsewhere so that the amount of work still stays the same. But the way that the course was originally written, it just started off with metaphysics, and I thought it was a better idea to have some background in philosophy before you started talking about big philosophical ideas. So that's where the Philosophical Foundations title comes from. It's designed to be a fairly quick unit and a fairly easy unit. It talks about and gives you some background on the various schools of thought in philosophy. The ones that we look at are also the ones that are the titles for the other units in the course. So for example, we have the metaphysics, the epistemology, the ethics, and the aesthetics units after the Philosophical Foundations unit. And if you add the culminating to that, that comprises the whole course. The unit gives you a sense of the progression of Western philosophy in particular and the history of Western philosophy. It introduces you to the big three, the granddaddies, who are Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Very important that you know about them and their relationship with each other, their beliefs, and how their beliefs sort of interacted. There's a famous saying that says that all of the rest of Western philosophy is just commentaries on the writings of Plato. So he's kind of an important guy. It also gives you an idea about the two big differences in philosophical thought that I really want you to know about, which are rationalism and empiricism. And we'll talk more about those as the course goes on, but pay attention for those terms. One thing it also does is it screws up the numbering of the course because, like I said earlier, I've added this on. So there's the Philosophical Foundations unit, and then the Metaphysics unit is actually listed as Unit 1, Metaphysics. So I'll remind you of that discrepancy later, but that's where that comes from. So a brief overview of the assignments. The first assignment is called the Branches assignment. Again, a very quick, easy assignment for grade 12 academic students. I give you a form and I ask you to fill the form in. Now, one thing about that, some people are computer savvy enough to do that on the computer and send it back to me with all their data in it. It's a PDF file. And some people aren't. And don't feel bad if you're not. Just print the thing out at your school, fill it in by hand, take a picture of it with your phone or something like that. Just make sure it's legible and send me back the picture. By all means, if you know how to do it some other way and it works, legibility is the important point. The branches, the one thing about that particular assignment is it asks you to talk about what are the big questions and who are the main philosophers, what are the big ideas, and then the subcategories. And people often get caught up on the subcategories. For these big schools of thought, like metaphysics and epistemology, there are refinements or subcategories of them, and they're very distinct. I'd like you to research that and find them out. A really great place to look is a site called Philosophy Basics. It's philosophybasics.com. It's a Canadian site, and it's got all that information there. Remember though, use your own words. Even though this one is point form, that idea of using your own words and your own idea goes through the entire class. So that's the branches assignment. The next one is Philosophy and the Humanities, and it's another form. It's the last form that I give you in the class, and it basically separates the other disciplines in the humanities and philosophy, and it basically makes you confront what makes them distinct or different and what makes them the same. Again, this is going to be a little bit of internet research on your part. Some of the differences are obvious and some of the similarities are very obvious as well. People who do well on this assignment dig a little bit deeper and find, more meaning in those similarities and differences other than the obvious. Plato and Aristotle assignment, that's the third assignment in the Philosophical Foundations unit. That is one where you have to compare the beliefs of Plato and Aristotle. It's a fascinating story of a teacher and his star student and how they fall out and begin to disagree and ultimately develop two very distinct schools of thought that profoundly affect Western thought in our culture. So what you're researching is, what did Plato think about this? Where did Aristotle think about this? And comparing them side by side. That's the beginning of those ideas of rationalism and empiricism that I was talking about earlier. And then the last one is the timeline. The timeline is a great way, I think, to give you an impression of how the history of philosophy works in the West. What I've done is I've divided time into three eras. So they're big eras. There's ancient, medieval, and Renaissance. I sort of sandwich those into one era, and then modern. I give you, broadly when those times are, and then for each one of those three eras, I want you to find 5 philosophers, and I want you to summarize the information about them. I give you the data that I want for each one of them: picture, quote, born, died, basic 3-point summary of what their key beliefs were. That's it. Some people get caught up on what philosophers they're supposed to use for which different eras. It's basically 5 for ancient, 5 for medieval Renaissance, and 5 for modern. As always, if you have questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I try to get back to people the same day, if not then early the next day, and I hope you enjoy.